Tatrati dakshadati ballavasham Vande Gurasi Charanarabindam Vande Gurasi Charanarabindam Vande Gurasi Charanarabindam Vande Gurasi Charanarabindam Sangsharanamanalalilaloka Pranayakadna Dhanaghanam Bhattacha Kalnana Gunanabhasha Vande Gurasi Charanarabindam Vande Gurasi Charanarabindam Vande Gurasi Charanarabindam Sakshadharitena samasta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thursday night reading and discussion of Chaitanya Charitamrita with the Prabhupada Disciples Association Hare Krishna Society. And we're reading from the original books of Srila Prabhupada that were approved by him during his manifested presence with us. There have been many changes in the books since his departure, and this is against his order, and Prabhupada had specifically given us direction during his presence with us on how to practice bhakti yoga and maintain a proper understanding of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya tradition through his directions. So tonight's program, we're going to read a letter that was sent by Srila Prabhupada to Rupanuga back in 1974, and it's going to deal specifically with the Gaudiya Math, which is another group that he was a member of back in time. And after his arrival in New York, he tried to work with his godbrothers, and unfortunately, he wasn't successful. And subsequently, he was giving direction to us, and there's a lot of questions about that, Nilesh Prabhu, in terms of our how we should deal with his godbrothers. And I had a personal letter sent to me, which we won't go to this evening, but we will read from this letter to Rupanuga from Srila Prabhupada that deals specifically with these issues. And if Bhakta Rupesh could please bring the letter up on the screen. I don't have it on my screen. I will read it for us. Dear Rupanuga, so it's April 28th, 1974. Very interesting letter. And it's important for us to know through these letters, specific letters. This will be a new feature of the program, which will be the letters section at the beginning. And then we'll read from the diaries of Prabhupada back in the 60s. So this is April 28th, 1974. My dear Rupanuga Maharaj, so he was back then, he was a sannyasi. Okay. He eventually gave that up, I suspect. I don't know much of that history. Please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter, April 17th, from Washington, D.C., and I've very carefully noted the contents. Regarding Mayapur, let's read that and let's see what he says. As you have begun, this program should be regularly followed. Once a year, meet in Mayapur and chalk out the activities for the year. Although that was the idea. Then next year, meet and see how things are being done, and if necessary, make changes for responsible GBC and presidents. So very loose management system, not rigid books and books of rules like they have now. The meeting is very valuable and must be carried out regularly every year. One thing is that at Mayapur, last time, most of the time was spent discussing, but no program is made firm for the year. For example, our Tamal Krishna Goswami never proposed to go to the USA at the meeting. Now he has decided to go back to the USA. Of course, you can go back, but if the matter is discussed at the meeting, then a GBC vote could be taken and they could be selected, could have selected a replacement. Now this replacement I have to bother. So he's going to deal with it. It's not difficult for me, but why wasn't there discussion of the meeting? Now, Karandar has written asking to come back, and I have called him to come to Bombay, and if possible, can be engaged as GBC for India. So he was in LA, and Prabhupada was doing this direction. Okay, here we're going to go into the discussion about Sridhar and the Gaudiya Math. So just slide down a bit. So you're right about Sridhar Maharaj's genuineness. But in my opinion, he is the best of the lot. He is my old friend. At least he executes the regulated principles of devotional service. I do not wish to discuss about activities of my godbrothers, but it is a fact they have no life for preaching work. All are satisfied with a place for residence. In the name of a temple, they engage disciples to get foodstuff by transcendental devices and eat and sleep. They have no idea or brain how to broadcast the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. My Guru Maharaj used to lament many times for this reason, if he thought it was, if one man, at least one man had understood the principle of preaching, then his mission would achieve success. Of course, that man is His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the latter days of my Guru Maharaj, he was very disgusted. Oh, yes. Actually, he left this world earlier, otherwise he would have continued to live for more years. Still, he requested his disciples to form a strong governing body for preaching the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He never recommended anyone to be acharya of the Gaudiya Math. So Prabhupada followed the same order. You should know that. Be aware of this. These people that take that role haven't read this letter. But, go back. But Sridhar Maharaj is responsible for disobeying this order of Guru Maharaj, and he and others who are already dead unnecessarily thought that there must be one Acharya. Now in ISKCON there's 150 of them and 70 have blooped. We're doing a chart, everyone, by the way, and we'll show it in the future as we develop the truth explanation of Krishna consciousness. If Guru Maharaj could have seen someone who was qualified at that time to be Acharya, he would have mentioned. Prabhupada never mentioned any of these to be Acharya, because on the night before he passed away, he talked of so many things, he never mentioned an Acharya. Our Prabhupada never mentioned 11 gurus. His idea was Acharya was not to be nominated amongst the governing body. And that's exactly what ISKCON is doing. He said openly, if you make a GBC and conduct a mission, he said, openly you make a GBC and conduct a mission. So his idea was amongst the members of the GBC who would come out successful and self-effulgent Acharya would be all automatically selected. So Sridhar Maharaj and his two associate gentlemen unorthodoxly selected one Acharya and later it proved a failure. The result is now everyone is claiming to be Acharya, even though they may be Kanishta Adhikari with no ability to preach. In some of the camps, the Acharya is being changed 3 times a year. And in the ISKCON group, if you fall down, you just switch guru. Go from one guru to a next guru. It's unbelievable, huh? Therefore, we must not commit the same mistake in our ISKCON camp. Actually, amongst my godbrothers, no one is qualified to become Acharya. In our ISKCON group, no one is. So it is better not to mix with my godbrothers, just like we're telling you, don't mix with these fake gurus very intimately, because instead of making, hold on, I'm sorry, I have to try to follow this. Actually, amongst myself, where are we? So it's better not to mix with my godbrothers very intimately, because instead of inspiring our students and disciples, they may sometimes pollute them. That's going on in ISKCON. This attempt was made previously by them, especially Madhava Maharaj and Tirtha Maharaj and Ban Maharaj, but somehow or other I saved the situation. This is going on. We shall be very careful about them and not mix with them. And Rupanuga did. He went with Kirtananda to see Sridhar. Madness. Told not to, and he did it anyway, Rochisha Devi Dasi. This is my instruction to you all. They cannot help us in our movement, but they are very competent to harm our natural progress. So we must be very careful about them. Our students who are making this political program must be fixed in one point, that human society, unless divided into 4 classes and divisions, is animal society. Among the animals, there's no intelligence for self-realization or how to make life successful. In human life, intelligence is better than animals. Therefore, they should know what is the aim of life. And to educate human society, that is the whole Vedic literature, of which the Bhagavad Gita is the quintessence. The Supreme Personality of God orders that there must be 4 divisions in human society, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, like that. And the first must be ideal. The whole society is full of rogues, thieves, drunkards, cheaters, and demons, where there is no question of decent government. There must be division. So the lower class of men may aspire to become second-class men. So far as we are concerned, we are trying to train first-class men, and that's the goal of our readings and discussions, Prabhus. And our initiation process that we have in place, I'll read that to you later during the week. How much great responsibility we have to follow regulated principles, chant the beads, live with personal character, etc. Regulated principles means to especially execute devotional service in terms of the revealed scriptures under the direction of the spiritual master. That's His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Prabhupada, the regulator principles are a device how to overcome the influence of Maya and come to the platform of spontaneous love of Krishna. If we want to exist as first-class men in society, all of our students must be encouraged to follow the regulated principles, and one shouldn't think artificially he has come to the spontaneous platform. That is Sahajiism. And this is ISKCON in 2024. Tire Sahajiism. So lots of information here, Rupesh. We'll end there. Maybe we can, at our next session, we'll go to that. Lots of information, Prabhus, just in one letter. Now we'll go to the diaries of Srila Prabhupada. Again, we're getting a lot of insight from these diaries.
What's happening with the sound? Nilesh, what's happening with the sound? Everything is stopped.
Prabhuji, I don't know, because I think it's on Vishwakarma Prabhu's side
Okay.
that his internet froze. I think he got knocked out from the.
Okay.
Do you want to do the beginning prayer, Prabhuji?
Sure, we can do that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Tato Jayam Mudirayat. Do you have these prayers on the screen?
Yeah, Rupesh Prabhu is doing it.
Okay. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Naranarayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, from Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 4. Welcome, everyone. to this reading and discussion on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. As we often do when we do these readings, we read a few selected verses from the Adi Lila, chapter 1, from text number 18 through 22, which describes the meaning and the transcendental benefit of hearing this powerful transcendental literature, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityānanda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Glory to Sri Chaitanya and Nityānanda. Glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. Etin Thakur Gadiya ke karye chenoyatma sat. Etinera charana vandan tire morinat. These three deities of Vrindavana, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinatha, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. Granterarambi Karimangala Charana Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan Tinera Smarana. In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Tinera Smarani Oi Vigna Vinashana Anayase Oi Nijavanchita Purana. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Semangala charanoi tribida prakar vastu nirdesha shirvada namaskara. The invocation involved three processes: defining the objective, offering benedictions, and offering obeisances. Again, welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This week we will be reading from Adi Lila, chapter 5, text number. Let's see what we have. Text number 34. Surya Mandala Yena Bahiri Nirvishesha Bhitare Suryera Karata Adisa Vishesha. Surya Mandala, the sun globe. Yena, light. Bahire, externally. Nirvishesha, without varieties. Bhitare, within. Suryera, of the sun god. Rata Adi, opulences like chariots and other things. Savishesha, full of varieties. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. It is like the homogeneous effulgence around the sun, but inside the sun are the chariot, horses, and other opulences of the sun god. It should be noted here that all synonyms, translations, and purport are by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Purport to text 34. Outside of Vaikuntha, the abode of Krishna, which is called Paravyoma, is the glaring effulgence of Krishna's bodily rays. This is called the Brahma Jyoti. The transcendental region of that effulgence is called Siddhaloka or Brahmaloka. When impersonalists achieve liberation, they emerge in that Brahmaloka effulgence. This transcendental region is undoubtedly spiritual, but it contains no manifestations of spiritual activities or variegatedness. It is compared to the glow of the sun. Within the sun's glow is the sphere of the sun, where one can experience all sorts of varieties. Text number 35. Kamadveshad bayad snehad yata bhaktyeshvari manaha aveshya tadagam hitva bhavastad gatim gataha. Kamat, influenced by lusty desire. Dveshat, by envy. Bhayat, by fear. Snehat, or by affection. Yata, as. Bhaktya, by devotion. Ishvare, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Manaha, the mind. Aveshya, fully absorbing. Tat, that. Agham, sinful activity. Hitva, given up. Bahavaha, many. Tat, that. Gatim, destination. Gataha, achieved. Translation. As true devotion to the Lord, one can attain his abode. Many have attained that goal by abandoning their sinful activities and absorbing their minds in the Lord through lust, envy, fear, or affection. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As the powerful sun, by its glowing rays, can purify all kinds of impurities, so the all-spiritual personality of Godhead can purify all material qualities in a person he attracts. Even if one is attracted by Godhead in the mode of material lust, such attraction is converted into spiritual love of Godhead by his grace. Similarly, if one is related to the Lord in fear and animosity, he also becomes purified by the spiritual attraction of the Lord. Although God is great and the living entity small, they are spiritual individuals, and therefore, as soon as there is reciprocal exchange by the living entity's free will, at once the great spiritual being attracts the small living entity, thus freeing him from all material bondage. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 1, text number 29. Text number 36. Yadarinam priyanam cha prapyamekam miboditam tad brahma krishnaro yakyat kirunarko parnajushuhu. Yat, that. Arinam, of the enemies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Priyanam, of the devotees, who are very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Cha, and. Prapyam, destination. Ekam, one only. Iva, thus. Uditam, said. Tat, that. Brahma, of impersonal Brahman. Krishna Yoho, and of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ekyat, due to the oneness. Kirana, the sunshine. Arka, and the sun. Upama, the comparison. Jushoho, which is understood by. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Where it has been stated that the Lord's enemies and devotees attain the same destination, this refers to the ultimate oneness of Brahman and Lord Krishna. This may be understood by the example of the sun and the sunshine, in which Brahman is like the sun and Krishna himself is like, in which Brahman is like the sunshine and Krishna himself is like the sun. Purport. This verse is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 1-278 of Srila Rupa Goswami, which further discusses this same topic in his Lagu Bhagavatamrita 1.541. There he refers to the Vishnu Purana 4.15.1, where Maitreya Muni asked Parashara in regard to Jai and Vijay how it was that Hiranyakashipu next became Ravana and enjoyed more material happiness than the demigods, but did not attain salvation. Although when he became Shishupala, quarreled with Krishna and was killed, he attained salvation and merged into the body of Lord Krishna. Parashara replied that Hiranyakashipu failed to recognize Lord Nrsimhadev as Lord Vishnu. He taught that Nrsimhadev was some living entity who had acquired such opulence by various pious activities. Being overcome by the mode of passion, he considered Lord Nrsimhadev an ordinary living entity, not understanding his form. Nevertheless, because Hiranyakashipu was killed by the hands of Lord Nrsimhadev, in his next life he became Ravana and had proprietorship of unlimited opulence. As Ravana, with unlimited material enjoyment, he could not accept Lord Rama as the personality of Godhead. Therefore, even though he was killed by Rama, he did not attain Sayujya or oneness with the body of the Lord. In his Ravana body, he was too much attracted by Rama's wife, Janaki, and because of that attraction, he was able to see Lord Rama. But instead of accepting Lord Rama as an incarnation of Vishnu, Ravana taught him an ordinary living being. When killed by the hands of Rama, therefore he got the privilege of taking birth as Shishupala, who had such immense opulence that he could think himself a competitor to Krishna. Although Shishupala was always envious of Krishna, he frequently uttered the name of Krishna and always thought of the beautiful features of Krishna. Thus, by constantly thinking and chanting of Krishna, even unfavorably, he was cleansed of the contamination of his sinful activities. When Shishupala was killed by the Sudarshan Chakra of Krishna as an enemy, his constant remembrance of Krishna dissolved the reactions of his vices, and he attained salvation by becoming one with the body of the Lord. From this incident, one can understand that even a person who thinks of Krishna as an enemy and is killed by him may be liberated by becoming one with the body of Krishna. What then must be the destination of devotees who always think favorably of Krishna as their master or friend? These devotees must attain a situation better than Brahmaloka, the impersonal body effulgence of Krishna. Devotees cannot be situated in the impersonal Brahman effulgence into which impersonalists desire to merge. The devotees are placed in Vaikuntha Loka or Krishna Loka. This discussion between Maitreya Muni and Parashara Muni centered on whether devotees come down into the material world in every millennium, like Jai and Vijaya, who were cursed by the Kumaras to that effect. In the course of these instructions to Maitreya about Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, and Shishupala, Parashar did not say that these demons were formerly Jai and Vijay. He simply described the transmigration through 3 lives. It is not necessary for the Vaikuntha associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come to take the roles of his enemies in all the millenniums in which he appears. The fall down of Jai and Vijay occurred in a particular millennium. Jai and Vijay do not come down in every millennium to act as demons. To think that some associates of the Lord fall down from Vaikuntha in every millennium to become demons is totally incorrect. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has all the tendencies that may be found in a living entity, for he is the chief living entity. Therefore, it is natural that sometimes Lord Vishnu wants to fight, just as he has the tendencies to create, to enjoy, to be a friend, to accept a mother and father, and so on. he also has the tendency to fight. Sometimes important landlords and kings keep wrestlers with whom they practice mock fighting, and Vishnu makes similar arrangements. The demons who fight with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the material world are sometimes his associates. When there's a scarcity of demons and the Lord wants to fight, he instigates some of his associates of Vaikuntha to come and play as demons. When it is said that Shishupal merged into the body of Krishna, it should be noted that in this case, he was not Jai or Vijay. He was actually a demon. In his Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Srila Sanatana Goswami has explained that the attainment of salvation by merging into the Brahman effulgence of the Lord cannot be accepted as the highest success in life, because demons like Kamsa, who were famous for killing brahmanas and cows, attained that salvation. For devotees, such salvation is abominable. Devotees are actually in a transcendental position, whereas non-devotees are candidate for hellish position of, hellish conditions of life. There is always a difference between the life of a devotee and the life of a demon, and their realization are as different as heaven and hell. Demons are always accustomed to be malicious toward devotees and to kill brahmanas and cows. For demons, merging into the Brahman effulgence may be very glorious, but for devotees it is hellish. A devotee's aim in life is to attain perfection in loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who aspire to merge into the Brahman effulgence are as abominable as demons. Devotees who aspire to associate with the Supreme Lord to render him transcendental loving service are far superior. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasme Shigurave Namah Namaum Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nityānanda Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhakti Vedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasme Shigurave Namaha Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadate Visheshatah Adadana Strinam Danteridam Yachi Punah Punah Srimadrupa Padam Bhojadhulisyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadaso Asmi Sarvata Tat Kripa Pikshako Nityam Tat Prishta Satkaromishvam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityānanda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In the Bhagavad Gita, we see that Lord Krishna explains very nicely, Ye yatamam prapadyante tam stateva bhajamyaham. That Lord Krishna's relationship with his devotees is very simple. As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Now, it's important to understand that there are some other living entities who are not devotees, who play the role of demons to fight with Krishna. This is very nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada here in his purport, very lengthy purport, describing the relationship between Lord Krishna in this material world when he wants to fight. Because in order to fight with Krishna, Krishna sends sometimes from the spiritual world some personalities, some associates, who will act in a demonic capacity and fight with Krishna. But there are differences also. Just like we see in the case of Shishupal, who was so much absorbed in envy of Krishna that he had the audacity to defame Krishna, to blaspheme Krishna. So Lord Krishna, at some point, when he had reached a certain number of offenses, used his Sudarshan chakra and cut his head. And what happened when Lord Krishna cut his head? Immediately his body went into the effulgence of Krishna's body. And all the persons, the great kings who were in the hall there, they saw this pastime of Lord Krishna killing Shishupal. Now we see the personality of Hiranyakashipu. The Hiranyakashipu did not have the intelligence to understand the personality of Lord Nrsimhadev, because he was harassing Prahlad Maharaj, and Lord Vishnu came in the form of Lord Narasimha to kill this Hiranyakashipu because he was giving trouble to the devotees. Again, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna describes Nabe Bhakta Pranashyati Kaunteya Pratijanihi, that my dear Kaunteya, dear Arjuna, you may declare it to the whole world that my devotee will never perish. Krishna always protects his devotees. Now, having said that, a person has to use his intelligence, just like recently I saw some post on YouTube. Somebody was saying, oh, it's impossible for anybody to harm Prabhupada because he was a pure devotee. Well, that is not the correct understanding. A pure devotee is protected by Krishna, but it does not stop envious persons from trying to harass a pure devotee, from trying to defame a pure devotee, and even in some instances, trying to kill a pure devotee. So this is a very important point to understand. Just like in the case of Haridas Thakur, he was a pure devotee, undoubtedly, but it did not stop some envious persons from trying to kill him. Same thing with Prahlad Maharaj. Same thing with the Pandavas. Same thing with so many devotees. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in chapter 17, in the story of Maharaj Parikshit being cursed by the impudent little Brahmin Shringi, there's a nice verse where it describes that sometimes devotees of the Lord are harassed, they are killed, they are cursed, they are beaten. So there are many different circumstances. But even though one is a pure devotee, it does not stop envious persons or persons with a demoniac mentality of trying to harm a pure devotee. Prabhupada describes in this purport also in one place that the devotees are always protected by Krishna, but demons are always averse to the pure devotees. They're always trying to harass the pure devotees. And the comment here from Neil Shyama Prabhu that even Jesus Christ, Lord Jesus Christ, he was also a pure devotee. He was harassed. They tried to kill him. There was a conversation where Prabhupada was describing the resurrection of Christ, and Prabhupada says that is the proof that he had a spiritual body, that he was not an ordinary person. So when we speak of a pure devotee, it's important to understand the various and numerous statements of Srila Prabhupada about pure devotees. There is also a statement by Srila Prabhupada in the Prabhupada Conversation book where his Guru Maharaj, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, told our Srila Prabhupada the story how the caste Brahmins of Navadvip wanted to pay 25,000 rupees in those days. That would have been a lot more in today's money, because they wanted to kill Bhaktisiddhanta and they did not want the police to take any action. So one policeman admitted to Bhaktisiddhanta, yes, sometimes we do that for ordinary persons, but not in the case of a sadhu. A sadhu, even in those days, the police had respect for sadhus. So it doesn't mean that Bhaktisiddhanta was not a pure devotee. It does not mean that he was not protected by Krishna, but it does mean that envious person with a wicked mentalities, in Sanskrit called dushta, dushtajan, envious person, they still may try to harm the pure devotee. So that is a very important point to understand, because sometimes persons who do not scrutinizingly study Prabhupada's books, or do not take the time to read the books properly and discuss the contents of the book, they will misunderstand the teaching. So this is a very important point. That's why when we read Prabhupada's books, it is important to discuss this amongst devotees, just like we are doing in this Sangha, so that devotees can arrive at the proper conclusion, at the proper understandings. Then the mind will become firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. This is also described by Krishnadas Kaviraj in his Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in another place, that by discussing Siddhanta, he used the Sanskrit word sudridamanas, one's mind will become firmly convinced. Siddhantya balaya chitte nakara alas. One should not be lazy, alas, in discussing Siddhanta, because by such discussion, one's mind will become firmly fixed. Now, this is not sentimental foolishness or emotional foolishness, but we have to basically understand how to discuss things properly. There is a system that Prabhupada wanted introduced in his society amongst his followers. Nowadays, it's been very common for some self-appointed authorities to forbid discussion. Any kind of topic which is embarrassing or not easily discussed and understood, it's forbidden. There's like, it's like a cult-like mentality. I keep giving the example that the current situation in Prabhupada's original society is like the situation they had in Guyana with Jim Jones, the infamous fanatical preacher who gave everybody Kool-Aid and they died. Do you think they had an Ishtagoshti before he gave them the Kool-Aid? Do you think they had an open discussion? No. It was like, do it, otherwise we're going to kill you anyway. Do what we say, otherwise we're going to kick you out. This is very similar to the current situation that many devotees face when they try to discuss controversial issues in Srila Prabhupada's original society. That is why many devotees had to take the discussion outside the fanatical, sentimental, sahaja atmosphere of these people, because they don't allow open discussion. They don't allow somebody like Neil Sharma to raise these important issues. They don't allow someone like Bhatta Rupesh to ask so many pertinent questions. They sure would not allow someone like Vishwakarma to bring up so many of these controversial topics. This is characteristics of a sahaja fanatical organization. In the beginning of this program, Vishwakarma Prabhu started to read from Srila Prabhupada's famous letter on the 28th of April, 1974, to one of his GBC members, warning him about the negative association with members of the Gaudiya Math. And Prabhupada said, this is my instruction to you all. Now, nowadays, there's some clever persons who have interpreted that this means, or this instruction was just for you personally, Vishwakarma and Yasoda. No, this instruction was meant for all of his followers, all of his students and disciples. And a year later, in October, Prabhupada wrote to the same Vishwakarma another letter, not to associate with any members of the Gaudiya Math, not to read their books, not to go to their temples. And again, that same instruction, this instruction was meant for all of his disciples. Brahmananda Swami, Prabhupada's secretary at the time, also sent a letter to all of the temples, to all the devotees, to follow that instruction. But some people think they're very clever. They say, oh no, I've heard a different instruction. Prabhupada told me personally. No. When Prabhupada says that he's giving an instruction to all of his disciples. It just means what it is. It's not difficult to understand. It's not complicated to understand. It's actually very simple to understand. When prophets said, don't do it, we're not to do it. And we have seen the result of going beyond that instruction. People become confused, people become bewildered. It becomes like some kind of sahaja nonsense. So many instructions have been given by Srila Prabhupada which have been neglected, which have been ignored and disobeyed. In the middle 1970s, Srila Prabhupada wrote to one leading devotee in Los Angeles, he says, whenever there are any problems in our society, it means that the instructions of the spiritual master are being neglected. I'm paraphrasing here. And the result of neglecting so many instructions means that one becomes disconnected from the bona fide understanding of the disciplic succession in Srila Prabhupada. Vishwakarma Prabhu in his brief talk mentioned about disciplic succession. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the meaning of disciplic succession. So much misunderstanding. Why? Because people do not hear from the proper sources. Prabhupada is given all instructions. If you take the time to go to any of these search websites like prabhupadbooks.com or the Prabhupada Folio, and you type in disciplic succession, there are so many posts. So many instructions are given there, from lectures, conversations, letters, from all the books. Why was Prabhupada so successful? Prabhupada explained several times, I did not do any magic, no trick. All I did was present the Bhagavad Gita as it is received in bona fide disciplic succession. When people change the instruction, change the books, disobey Prabhupada's instruction, then this is disrespectful to the order of the Acharya. And that disrespect results in offenses against the Acharya. And by doing that, one becomes disconnected from the mercy and the bona fide teachings of the Acharya. Now, this is very important because there's a lot of misunderstanding of how to understand Prabhupada's instruction in their pure and original form. It is not complicated to understand. It is not difficult to understand, but when there is mental speculation, then there is disconnection. One devotee in Australia, Ganesh Prabhu, once asked Srila Prabhupada, why is it that the Bhagavad Gita is referring to the disciplic succession being disconnected? In Prabhupada's point, this is when there are false spiritual masters, when the teachings are not being followed, that's when there are disconnection. I'm paraphrasing here. So this is very important for anybody who considers himself a follower or a student or a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, not to be misled by political, sentimental propaganda. There's a lot of institutional propaganda going on where many devotees are bewildered. Why this happened? Why that happened? I've had somebody would ask me, well, how did Krishna allow this? How did Krishna allow that? Krishna is not going to interfere with your independence. Krishna is very kind, very merciful. If you want to misuse your independence, then Krishna will allow that. If you want to use your independence and follow Krishna's instruction, follow the representative of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna will give you all mercy, all intelligence. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's nice description in chapter 15, Matasmritir jnanam apohanam cha, that I give knowledge, I give remembrance, I also give forgetfulness. There was a very interesting letter with Srila Prabhupada talking about the Mayavadis, because sometimes devotees will ask, well, how did Krishna allow the Mayavadis to spread so much nonsense philosophy? And Prabhupada answer, if you want to forget Krishna, Krishna will also give you the intelligence that you interpret this verse in this way, you interpret that verse in that way, and in this way you'll never understand Krishna. That is the position of the Mayavadis. Nowadays we are facing a wave of Sahajya that has affected and infected the society, because people are not connected to the original teachings. They're listening to sentimental ideas. That's why Prabhupada warns in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami in Madhya chapter 19, that if one is not careful to obtain the Bhaktila Bij from the spiritual master, instead he cultivates the Karma Bij, the Jnana Bij, or the social, political, or philanthropic Bij. Bij means seed. So we have to very carefully understand, if we want to remain connected or reconnected with Srila Prabhupada, we have to follow his instruction, read his books carefully, study his books, and understand his teachings without false interpretation. Then everything will become clear. Otherwise, even though one may be very intelligent, one may know Sanskrit or Bengali or be a great scholar, one is guaranteed to be bewildered. And one has to follow the instruction. When Prabhupada said for disciples to chant a certain number of rounds or a certain mode of behavior, we have to do that. One cannot think, oh, I'm so experienced, I've been a devotee for so many years. But that doesn't matter. You still have to follow. And this is important to remember, very important to remember. Srila Prabhupada has given so many instructions in his books and his various talks and conversations and lectures. One should not neglect these instructions. One should carefully follow these instructions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Is Vishwakarma there? Vishwakarma, are you able to speak? How is your sound?
I can't speak.
We hear you now. We hear you.
Thank you. It was Rupesh. He had silenced all of the participants. So thank you, Rupesh. And I do apologize for my power going out. But anyway, we march on. And thank you, Yashodanandana, for your wonderful explanation of today's reading and discussion. Why is renunciation promoted in our practice of devotional service? Because the first principle of self-realization is we are not the body. First principle. If you don't understand that spiritual principle, why would you give up sense gratification? Because this body is simply a machine made of material elements. It is actually considered to be a city of 9 gates. And we rest within this city of 9 gates as its controller. And the process of devotional service, as being taught to us by Srila Prabhupada, is to discipline our behaviors so that we can elevate our understanding of the purpose of life. And if we don't, we become disqualified for advancing to a higher birth or back home, back to Godhead at the time of death. It's a simple philosophy. And Prabhupada, there were so many points here today in the purport, Yashodanandana Prabhu, so many, and you made a good point that we should critically study these books. Like you could just study this one purport. That would be enough in a sense to give us total understanding of the purpose of human life, just one purport. And we're going to call upon our panel after to speak on these matters. I wanted to highlight a couple of things that came up in the purport that I noted down. Material enjoyment makes a person unqualified to know Krishna or Ram. Material success or material wealth can be a stumbling block on the path to self-realization. We know that goes on. Nilesh, when people get money, they have power, and they think with that power, they're independent of anyone else. They're capable of buying their way in life. It's interesting to note. And I know you're in America, we're up in Canada here. So it's this an upcoming election. We're sort of like the audience studying the play that's going on down there. But it's interesting to note that both so-called candidates for the presidency, they're promising people everything. Oh, we'll give you this, you're going to get that, we're going to make it great, you'll have money, you'll be able to go to the show, you can go buy your food, the food will be cheaper, the gas will be cheaper, and you'll be happy because you got money. But material success and material wealth for a sincere person who understands their spiritual position as the eternal servant of Krishna and of Srila Prabhupada realizes, Nilesh, that there's no happiness in this material world from material prosperity. No way. In fact, everyone is still subjected to birth, death, disease, and old age. Nobody knows when they're going to live. Look what happened to you in Florida. Look what happened with all those hurricanes and tornadoes and terrible weather occurrences that took place. Adi Bhautika, Adi Devaka, Adi Atmaka, miseries caused by the material nature, the miseries caused by other living entities. You can have money, but it doesn't mean you're going to be happy because everybody's going to run after you. Can you give me money, please? That's what happens. A lot of people, they get money when they win a lottery, and what does it do? It ruins their life. They end up committing suicide. They end up dying because everybody's driving them crazy. Give me money, give me money, give me money. I don't have any. So, devotees who aspire to associate with the Supreme Lord to render transcendental service to the Lord are far superior than anyone who aspires or becomes materially wealthy. In fact, the more we make advancement, the more ridiculous, Nilesh, the whole thing looks. Lately, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Again, getting back to the point. How do you know, Nilesh, that a politician is lying? Do you have the answer? How do you know a politician is lying?
When he opens his mouth.
Exactly. Every time they speak. That's what's going on. And it's not specifically these topics, but the point is this, that they're misleading people about the purpose of human life, and that is real leadership. It was interesting to note that the lady that's running in the campaign was interviewed on CNN, and I watched it briefly. And the person asked us, well, what do you do when you're suffering some lamentation? And they used a different word. She had no answer. She had no answer. Now, how could a person that is supposed to be in charge of the greatest country in the world can't give an answer? What do you do with lamentation? Well, for Krishna explains. What do you get from lamentation? More lamentation. What do you get from more hankering? More hankering. And in this way, these people are spun in the trap of Maya. This is complete, absolute insanity, this Kali Yuga now. And it's not only insanity in the regular karmi world, it's become insanity in the so-called Vaishnava communities that are evolving throughout the world as a result of Prabhupada's work. And their deviations are becoming apparent in the behavior of these fake gurus who are also misrepresenting the people that are interested in spiritual life and are being deceived by misinformation. Just like I was reading the letter Yashodananda. So fascinating today. And we're going to be introducing that into our program, all these letters now, so that we can continue to learn how to critically think the way Prabhupada wanted us to. Not just simply concoct the philosophy like this so-called fellow in Silicon Valley who's become the new Tony Robbins, the new Joel Osteen. What is going on? This is complete madness. So, and Yashoda made an interesting point. It'd be superficial, Prabhupada said, to think that Jesus died. Superficial to think he died. But so much concoction in all these groups. And we as disciples have to read and study these books together like we are. It's not an option. In fact, if people want to get initiated with our group through the Ritvik system, they have to attend the classes. They have to know what we're talking about. They have to listen. They have to follow the rules and regulations. Why? Because we're instructing. That's why. If you don't want to listen, you're entitled to that. But what's the point of coming if you don't want to learn? Just like if you want to learn how to go and become a surgeon, you have to listen to the professor, right, doctor? You have to. It's not an option. Oh, I don't think I want to believe what you say. Okay, don't. But you'll never pass the exam. So that's the business of a Siksha guru. Siksha means teaching the process of Krishna consciousness properly to aspiring, serious people that want to learn. Those that don't want to learn, what's the point of having an association with a Siksha guru or with the Diksha guru or with Srila Prabhupada in his Vani incarnation? What's the point? There's no point. Go do whatever you're going to do. So that's enough. Yashodananda Prabhu, if you could further explain.
Well, thank you for this explanation. I want to bring up a topic which has recently resurfaced. It comes up from time to time. Somebody is saying, why did you and Vishwakarma, why is it that you're not working to reform or purify ISKCON, clean up ISKCON? Well, first of all, that's one of the purposes of these classes, to try to discuss and analyze and offer suggestions how to improve the society and its members and to correct the problems with that society. Then the next criticism came up, why is it that you, Yashodananda, form your own society? Well, I didn't form my own society. Hare Krishna Society is a bona fide registered religious nonprofit organization meant to pursue and follow the original teachings of Srila Prabhupada. It's on record with the IRS, with the California Secretary of State, with the California Franchise Tax Board. And the whole purpose of this organization is to follow the original, pure and original teachings of Srila Prabhupada. There's nothing wrong with that. And the reason we did that, because we've tried many times in the past to try to discuss with the leading members of Prabhupada's original society the various problems that we tried in 1978, we tried in 1979. I tried to rejoin ISKCON in 1982 just to be told that some devotees was told, he's the most dangerous man in ISKCON. Of course, I laughed at that. But their mentality was, well, if he knows the whole history and we couldn't defeat his argument, well, then he's the most dangerous man in ISKCON. This is a cult mentality. Krishna consciousness is not a cult. Interestingly, I want to quote one American politician who once made a very significant statement. This is from Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who was a member of Congress. He says, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts." The problem we have is we have a group of people who've manufactured their own facts based on Prabhupada's their own interpretation of Prabhupada's clear statements. They've invented and manufactured an interpretation that makes no sense. This false idea of appointed acharya, of elected acharya, of gurus by vote, this is all nonsense. It's a disobedience of Prabhupada's teachings. I want to quote, maybe Rupesh can pull it up. It's from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, text number 23. Canto 4, Chapter 22, text number 23, the last 2 or 3 sentences in the purport. Prabhupada explains, the purport is that one cannot live outside the society of devotees. One must live in the association of devotees where there is constant chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord, which is exactly what we're doing with these programs and these meetings and discussion. The Krishna consciousness movement is started for this purpose, so that hundreds of ISKCON centers may give people a chance to hear and chant. Oh, very nice, right there. The Krishna consciousness movement is started for this purpose, so that hundreds of ISKCON centers may give people a chance to hear and chant, to accept the spiritual master, and to disassociate themselves from persons who are materially interested. For in this way, one can make solid advancement in going back home, back to Godhead. It's important to note Prabhupada's statement, to accept the spiritual master. Which spiritual master is Prabhupada talking about? He's talking about himself indirectly. That is what he's talking about. Then there's another very important quotation from Srila Prabhupada. This was a letter to Nityānanda on February 11th, 1967. A letter from Srila Prabhupada on February 11th, 1967. I wish that every branch shall keep their independent identity and cooperate, keeping the acharya in the center. On these principles, we can open any number of branches all over the world. The Ramakrishna Mission works on this principle, and thus, as organization, they have done wonderfully. Now, there is a lot of information in Prabhupada's letters, Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada's statements about what is the purpose of the society. This is not a political society. It is not meant just be simply for money making or some sentimental association. This is a serious movement for those who are seriously interested in solving the problems of life and going back home, back to Godhead. We will deal with this topic again. I believe our good friend Neil Shyama had his hand up for quite a while there.
Let's move forward then. We have quite a few people in our panel, so go ahead, Nilesh. You have a question or a comment?
Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada. So I bring you greetings today for Deepavali. Today is Diwali, so my humble obeisances to everybody. So I have about 5 questions to ask Yashodanand Prabhu. The first one is associated with the topic which you just discussed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Prabhupada, I'm very surprised to see what Prabhupada has written is that Shishupal was really a demon. When we know that Jai Vijay were cursed by the 4 Kumaras, and the 4 Kumaras were given a choice whether you're going to take 5 births as devotees or 3 births as asuras. And so they choose the 3 births of asuras. And when they were questioned as to why did you choose the asuras instead of devotees, he said, well, I will come back faster, back home, back to Godhead to serve Krishna. So we don't want to stay in the material world that long. And that is the reason which they chose this. So Shishupal was one of his last incarnations of Jai Vijay. No, not one of the last, but actually with with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, um, Gadai and Majai, they were the last ones, the incarnations. So can you tell me about this situation with Shishupal as to why even though they were in one sense, they were considered to be the incarnation of Jai Vijay. Why is Prabhupada saying this way? Do you want me to
Now,
continue with the second question or?
just one question at a time, please. It gets a little, okay. The understanding is that Srila Prabhupada is explaining the meaning of this Leela. What if you notice in this purport we were reading, Prabhupada is explaining here that he is quoting from the Vishnu Purana. He is quoting from Rupa Goswami from the Lagu Bhagavatamrita. So in other words, Prabhupada is explaining as he heard it from these great acharyas, as far as all the intricacies of the reason for this and the reason for that, you probably would have to conduct a little bit more study from Prabhupada's books, and everything there is explained very nicely. This purport has a lot of explanation. There are also further explanations in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Now, the great acharyas like Vishwanath Chakravarti, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami have given a lot of explanation of these different leelas, of these different reincarnations of Jai Vijay, and this is the understanding of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that they appeared in 3 consecutive births, and then they went back to Godhead. So this is the brief explanation that Srila Prabhupada has given. For further explanation, I mean, you could look at the PrabhupadaBooks.com, put Jai Vijay in a search box, and look at all the entries. That's the respectful suggestion. That's what I would do if you want to get deeper into the topic. So we can deal with the second question.
So the second one which comes to is, you were mentioning about the poisoning of Srila Prabhupada and people talking about that, oh, Srila Prabhupada is the pure devotee, nobody can harm him. Now, if you look at, whenever this happens, we know that Prabhupada had stopped eating uh, uh, any kind of foodstuffs because he knew who the perpetrators were, but he didn't ever mention those perpetrators. And why did he not do that? I see a lot of analogy in that with the cow, the personification of religion, how she was mistreated by the personality of Kali. And when Parikshit Maharaj comes, she never utters the name of the perpetrator, which is Kali himself. She understands that whatever is happening in this material world, whatever has happened to her, has happened according to Krishna's will, because Krishna says is that Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. So everything is happening. So there was one email which you had sent long time ago, which states that Prabhupada knew it, and Prabhupada kept quiet purposely, is because he is a completely surrendered soul to Krishna. So whether it is happening for his benefit or not for his personal benefit, it does not matter. So how can we see this in this light or in this perspective?
Well, we've often tried to discuss this on this program, and both Vishwakarma Prabhu and myself have mentioned we're not professional criminal investigators. We are trying to be devotees. And for many devotees, this is a very bewildering pastime of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, one of the things that has happened is that many of these conversations where Prabhupada made these statements were way at the end in November 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, 1977. And the transcripts of these conversations did not come about for at least 10 years, the English transcripts. Now, many of these statements by Srila Prabhupada were in Hindi and Bengali, which is a language which is not familiar for most Westerners. And the actual transcripts of these Hindi segments of the conversation did not come about till about 1998, 1999. So devotees didn't really have the full picture of the various statements of Srila Prabhupada. No one up to that time had really conducted a full-fledged investigation of these circumstances and everything. And now on the internet, there are many, many persons who have conducted various investigations and various analysis of whispers and other statements, and it's basically being discussed amongst many devotees. Now, as far as to how to understand the position of a pure devotee, there is a lot of statements from Prabhupada, different conversations. The reason I brought up this point about Lord Jesus Christ and his resurrection, because Prabhupada said his body was completely spiritual. Otherwise, how could he be resurrected? He was not an ordinary jiva. He was, Prabhupada called him a Shakti Avisha avatar, or an especially empowered soul that basically was able to do what he did in his mission. Similarly with Srila Prabhupada, I mean, those of us at the end, we saw Prabhupada was hardly eating and coming to know what we did not know then. I mean, he was obviously protected by Krishna. But again, being protected by Krishna does not mean that some envious person or some bewildered persons will not try to harm a pure devotee. For example, in the case of Ramanujacharya, when he started to preach to his teacher, and his teacher, who was an Advaitin, a Mayavadi, could not defeat the arguments of Ramanuja, when they went on a pilgrimage, the teacher tried to kill Ramanuja. They tried to poison him. So there's a lot of instances. I mean, in the Mahabharata, in the beginning of the 5 Pandavas, they tried to poison Bhima. The Pandavas, the house where they were living was set on fire, the house of lac. So there is a lot of different incidents in Vedic literature, the case of Prahlad Maharaj, the case of Haridas Thakur, the case of Jesus Christ. One can't say, well, since a pure devotee is always protected by Krishna, so it's impossible that such... No, it's not impossible for people to become envious of a pure devotee. It happens. Bewildered, ambitious persons will do crazy things. Just like we discussed earlier, how some caste Brahmins and Navadvip caste Goswamis were willing to pay a police officer 25,000 rupees in those days, in the beginning of the 19th century, to have Bhaktisiddhanta killed. And Bhaktisiddhanta told the story to Srila Prabhupada. So it doesn't mean that Bhaktisiddhanta was not protected by Krishna, but it means that some persons, bewildered by the influence of Maya, may try to harm a pure devotee. So we have to understand from that perspective. But there's a lot. There's a devotee in England named Mahesh Raja. I don't know if any one of you know him, but he's written quite a few things about this issue, and he's compiled different articles of how to understand the position of a pure devotee and how a pure devotee is protected by Krishna. Another thing that we have to consider is a pure devotee is always tolerant. A sadhu is not disturbed, he is always tolerant. So this is a very important point, because some people will say, well, why didn't Prabhupada protest? Why didn't Prabhupada identify the persons who may doing such a misdeed? Well, Prabhupada is not an ordinary person. He was very tolerant. He was a topmost Paramamsa. And we'll leave it at that for now. Hare Krishna.
So it comes out to 2 more points, is that, do you know of any place or anywhere where anybody has asked Srila Prabhupada why we should not associate with the Gaudiya Math? We know the reason, but where Prabhupada very clearly states why he is asking us not to associate with the Gaudiya Math. Part of this question was already answered by the purport which you just read of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, verse 23, where Prabhupada mentions is that we should associate with the spiritual master and disassociate ourselves with anybody who is materially motivated. And we can see that Gaudiya Math was materially motivated, and so is the different organizations, ISKCON as of right now, by different personalities. So, but is there any place where Prabhupada says very categorically why he's asking us not to?
Yeah. Well, it's in that letter I read at the beginning of the class. Were you there for that? The letter to Rupanuga? Just analyze that, Prabhu. It was at the beginning of the program. I read the letter specifically by Prabhupada, and he explains why. and then we can discuss it. Did you see the letter?
Yeah, I saw the letter, but it was more like do not associate intimately, you know. While in this
Well, we'd
purport
have
of
to get
which we
it back
just read,
out again. We'd have to get
yeah,
it.
we just
We have to
we
get it.
just read the purport, and the purport says very clearly that you should not associate with anybody which is materially
Well, he
motivated.
talked about
You know,
acharya. He talked about elected people. There were lots of reasons. So, of
yes.
course, we can discuss that, and we can even discuss it on the phone. Let's keep moving forward here. We've got a few other
Okay.
people. I think we lost somebody.
And then I want to just make two more points. Is
Uh,
that today being Deepavali, and today was the day when actually the Damodar Leela occurred. And it just occurred to me is that Prabhupada, in his infinite mercy for us, has tied down Krishna to us by requesting us to chant the Damodar Ashtakam for the entire month. So imagine that due to Prabhupada's mercy, we have all tied down Krishna with the ropes of whatever little devotion we have for him for this entire month. Krishna remains bound so that we can sing the Damodar Ashtakam to him through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So people should understand. And I use this backdrop of Ram Lalla, who is the deity form in Ayodhya of Lord Rama, because that's another story what happened in Deepavali. But this is very important that we understand the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and how much he has bestowed upon us, because you can talk to anybody who is belonging to any other sect or Sanatan Dharma, but they don't have this privacy, this privy, or this privilege of worshipping Krishna tied down the way we have by Prabhupada's instruction of chanting the Damodar Ashtakam. And then the last point which I wanted to make, Yashanandan Prabhu, is why are you not cleaning down ISKCON? Did anybody ask Prabhupada why did he not clean up Gaudiya Math rather than start his own ISKCON? The reason is because as he took his spiritual master's instructions very, very much to his heart. Number one, to try to preach this to the West, and number two, he wanted to invest in the innocent jivas who are really interested in making spiritual progress. Those who are materially motivated, let them continue with their journey, and Krishna and the individual souls, depending on their prarabdha, will either align to them or they will align with us. I would like to know your thoughts, Yashodanand Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Well, there is a conversation with Prabhupada explained that point. This is because his godbrothers were not cooperating amongst themselves to preach. Therefore, he had no alternative but start his own separate society. And similarly, with our situation, we've tried to address some of the fundamental issues right in the beginning, in late 1970s and the early 1980s, but to no avail. They didn't want to discuss because they were materially motivated for name, fame, power, prestige, and position. They wanted to use the assets of ISKCON for their own selfish purposes. Therefore, we had no other alternative than to try to organize ourselves so we could fully focus on Prabhupada's instruction to keep him as the Acharya, keep him in the. There's no center in ISKCON right now that is following that directive of Prabhupada in 1967 to keep the Acharya in the center. And this was discussed right in the beginning. They've elected and voted in so many new Acharyas. Where did Prabhupada give that directive in 1977 in the last few months of his manifested presence to elect Acharyas, to vote in Acharyas? It doesn't exist. The only instruction he gave them with regard to initiation is to act as the officiating representative to keep him as the Acharya, as the initiating Diksha Guru. They didn't want to do that. So therefore, we had no alternative but to do that. As simple as that.
Yep. Rupesh, is it possible you could read that quote that Prabhupada gave about the Ram mission on the chat here? Let's see if I can get it. I thought that was very profound. I wish that
it's a letter to Nityānanda.
I wish that each and every branch shall keep their independent identity and cooperate, keeping the Acharya in the center. Keeping on this principle, we can open any number of branches all over the world. The Ramakrishna mission works on this principle, and thus, as an organization, they have done wonderfully. And this, unfortunately, has not been done after, even while Prabhupada was personally with us, it was being changed by a few. And then, of course, after his departure with us, it fell apart completely. There it is there. So all of you can see that. It's a letter on February 11th, 1967. It was a very early period of time where there was a lot of personal guidance given in these letters to his expanding mission as people started to join. And it required more direction. And in this way, he was guiding us through his books and through his letters and his lectures. So there's so much critical study that can be done in association with like-minded devotees. Dharma Bhavana, do you have any comments you want to share before we end up the program? Is he still with us? No, we lost a few people. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Dharma Bhavana in Dallas, Texas. Your microphone. Rupesh, maybe shut off. Take a check.
Okay. Am I on now?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I came late today. Just wanted to mention that it still seems a little bit difficult to talk about Prabhupada's departure past time. But about the last 25 years, I've come to understand it's actually really important in the sense that, like in January, February of 77, Prabhupada described how Jesus Christ was not all that successful in sharing the message of love of God. But when he was crucified, then it became spread all around the world. So as more and more people around the world come to understand Prabhupada's unlimited mercy, his tolerance, and all these divine qualities, it will really make a big difference. So I just had a small comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. What was that? Someone speaking? Okay. We want to thank everyone for attending. We've already reached 9:33 at the end of the session. And we want to invite you to return on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. in the morning and on Sunday at 10 a.m. And I think Nilesh wants to mention about the translator on Saturday morning. Go ahead.
So, Prabhuji, please, I'm requesting everybody that please invite as many people as possible, both nationally, internationally, intergalactically, if you want to, because we'll have some uh, uh, artificial intelligence assisted real-time interpretation. And I want a little feedback as to how efficient this is. So that way we can try different platforms and see if we can spread this original message of Srila Prabhupada in all the four corners of this world, and let not time, place, and language be a barrier. So I request humbly that please spread this message as much as possible, and let us see how this works. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, glories to Srila Prabhupada. And remember, everyone, if you happen to miss a program, you can always go to our YouTube channel, Hare Krishna Society YouTube. And we're close to 400 programs on the channel. Lots of interesting. It's been evolving for the last couple of years, and we keep evolving it and trying to improve it. We've got some other things, Nilesh, we're planning, not just for the devotee community, but for, let's say, to use a better term, the karmi world, and to enter into that realm of presentation to people that are looking for the truth of the purpose of life. And that's what we want to target. Because the ISKCON group, even though there are a lot of people, it's a very confused group. and somewhat difficult to deal with on many, many levels. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada and the Sankirtan mission. And we're going to go to the Kirtan right now, led by Srila Prabhupada back in the 60s. So chant along. It's for 2.5 minutes. So join the Kirtan, chant along, and then we'll have the wind up to today's reading and discussion with the Prabhupada Disciples Association, Hare Krishna Society.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava, the devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thanks Rupesh Prabhu in Bombay, India, Vishwakarma Prabhu in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and Nilesh Prabhu in Miami, Florida, USA, and everybody who participating in this very interesting program. Thanks Krishna Prabhu, Kata Prabhu, for displaying this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, which we're still actively trying to get reprinted. We see his fingers, he's chanting Hare Krishna. We see it sometimes the top of his head fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And thanks to everybody who is participating in this program. And we invite you to come again on Saturday morning at 7:00 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, California time, corresponding to 10 a.m. Florida time in Hamilton, Ontario, Eastern Canada, Eastern USA time. Again, thanks everybody. and we look forward to see you on Saturday morning. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama